The heroes lay motionless on the ground, defeated by the gatekeeper of the demon city. All 4 of them had fainted. Even though they were the strongest warriors of the era, they couldn't even overcome a mid-level monster. Yuki, a demon with a single horn on his head and dark wings, was looking at them worriedly. You see, Yuki was once a human, but after being reborn as a demon, he gained a special ability. A cheat that made him incredibly powerful, even surpassing the Demon King. As a reincarnated demon, Yuki's goal is not only to establish a dictatorial rule or satisfy his own power and cause chaos like previous demon kings. Instead, he only wishes to help the heroes defeat the evil people of this era. To make the world a better place, he is the good guy character in this story. And, in any story, there's rarely an excess of good people. Ladies and gentlemen, leading this group is none other than Yuga, the wielder of the holy sword Excalibur. Next is Makana, a strong maid with a secret crush on Yuga, something everyone knows, except Yuga himself. One of the other heroes is Raven, a handsome boy with an angular face and mysterious demeanor, something Yuki cannot accept. Finally, there is Cecilia, the beautiful nun of the group. Demons attack people in a sophisticated way. Raven was under the spell and disappeared, leaving the group confused from the beginning. He destroyed Yuga immediately, then healed him afterwards. He did not show any mercy towards Makana, because she was quite annoying to him. When he saw Cecilia, the devil became gentler and suddenly knocked her down from behind. And laid her down on the floor. But at that moment, his eyes stopped on her beautiful face, and his heart suddenly fluttered. Even though he plotted to keep her by his side, there was no truly viable option. In the end, he only ordered 3 loyal subordinates to take the group safely out of the castle. 30 days later, the 4 of them rushed forward again, this time undeterred. Yuki still maintains an evil look and threatens to send them to hell. Yuga bluntly asked his name, and the devil proudly showed off his lowly status with mysterious charm. The battle broke out again, but this time, the evil gatekeeper staggered and tripped repeatedly. He kept glancing at Cecilia, which made Yuga, the leader of the hero group, feel angry because he was putting all his effort into defeating the enemy. At that moment, Yuki woke up from his distraction and used his ultimate dark technique on everyone. Not surprisingly, the group of heroes was easily defeated. The winner goes around checking each person's condition. Cecilia seemed unharmed, and he suddenly thought that perhaps he had unconsciously placed a protective spell on her. His loyal subordinates arrived to take the recovered heroes out of the nearby forest. But this did not discourage the group of heroes. They keep coming back, over and over again. One night, as Yuki contemplated his plan, the demon lord also realized there were people trying to find him. He thought that they were probably so weak that they couldn't even approach him. However, the real reason why the group of heroes was stopped for so long was the gatekeeper. Once again, the group of heroes headed towards the entrance, and this time, Yuki offers to keep Cecilia under his care, so they can approach the demon lord themselves. Everyone refused, except for the magician in the group. She talked about defeating the demon lord first, then going back to rescue Cecilia from the gatekeeper. Despite some hesitation, the remaining 3 people let Cecilia stay. Yuki suddenly blushed when he was finally alone with her. While Cecilia bravely prepared to fight until her last breath, the confused gatekeeper said that he never intended to kill her. On the contrary, he confessed his feelings, a brave warrior in the battle of love. Cecilia's face turned red, but she immediately refused him outright. Yuki slumped to the floor, losing the will to live as tears welled up in his eyes. This was the first time he was defeated by a group of heroes. Cecilia still thought he was cheating on her, until she saw him sitting on the ground, immersed in sadness. While she was about to launch an attack, she suddenly asked why he, a demon, behaved so strangely, while other demons were usually extremely cruel. Yuki reveals his true identity and his life story as a human. Sadly, he also confessed that he had been helping the group of heroes all this time. The confused nun asked why he didn't defeat the demon lord himself, but Yuki replied that he never wanted to sit on the throne in the first place. He gave up and reassured her that he would be fine staying in the small room at the castle entrance, after being rejected by her. Now the gentle and kind nun began to worry about him, unable to bear to see him in such a miserable situation. Cecilia reached out to Yuki, asking him to change his form to start a new life outside. In the capital Minerva, the heroes were greeted in a grand parade, celebrating their victory from the demon lord's castle. Meanwhile, Yuki, having escaped from his mission, makes his way to Minerva following the map Cecilia gave him. Under his old name, Yuki enrolled in the local guild, meeting someone who seemed to be in charge, Kramen. With dark circles under his eyes, tired from the intense work while all the employees went to watch the parade. Now looking more human, Yuki begins to calculate his new plan. To earn money by participating in guild missions, until the day he can confess his feelings to Cecilia. After a week of joining the guild, Yuki quickly rose to rank D. He especially likes Kramen more than any other receptionist and constantly bothers him to ask for his daily reward. One day, Cecilia suddenly visited the guild, surprising everyone. Yuki blushed and stood dumbfounded at her appearance. The two reunited and sat on the carriage together, talking about things that had happened since they were apart. Yuki was surprised to learn that he had been found earlier than expected, and Asili replied that he had not made the wise decision not to change his appearance or name. Yuki remembers the pain of breaking his own horn and tearing off his wings to look more human. When the carriage stopped in front of a villa, the two guards immediately pointed their spears at him and asked him to stop. But Cecilia reassured everyone, introducing that he was a friend visiting. However, Yuki feels like he probably doesn't deserve to be with the person he loves. The treatment from those around him makes him wonder about his own value. They sat across from each other, and Cecilia asked Yuki to leave the guild. She explains that if they are too famous, they may be hired by other countries. High-ranking heroes are highly sought after, and minor nobles often woo them by offering their daughters in marriage. Hearing this, Yuki suddenly asked if Cecilia had received any marriage proposals. She said she refused everything. Then continued to suggest that he leave the guild to work directly for her, which would be convenient for him as he already had feelings for her. Yuki generously refused the offer, declaring that he wanted to pursue her in his own way, achieve success through his own strength, and prove his feelings sincerely. He made it clear that his goal was not to work for other countries or become famous, because he only wanted to focus on her. Cecilia laughed at his humor, believing that only humans could be so stupid and cheerful. The conversation ended, but not before each person left to go their separate ways. Yuki hesitantly asked if Cecilia could be called by her first name, and the two agreed to that. The next day, he confidently walked to the gate of her villa, but ironically, was stopped by the human guards. It's true that fate has changed. Frustrated, he wandered into the city and saw Raven, the heroic swordsman, surrounded by a group of girls, looking clearly exhausted. Quick-witted, Yuki pointed in another direction and shouted that he had just seen the hero's leader there. The crowd immediately rushed in that direction, and Yuki quickly grabbed Raven's hand, pulling him away before the crowd could return. The two stood in an alley, and even now, Raven remained mysterious, not saying a word, adding to his coldness. Yuki felt annoyed again and tried to leave and mind his own business. But suddenly, he was called back. The voice from behind rang out, not unlike the voice of an anime character. Yuki was stunned, couldn't believe his eyes, and also his ears. Yuki discovers that Raven, the cold, quiet guy, is actually very self-conscious about his voice. Unexpectedly, the timid boy offered to be friends with the former gatekeeper demon, surprising Yuki. When he was young, he was bullied because of his accent and only his mother and cousin didn't laugh at him, and now Yuki too. The two officially introduced themselves. Yuki felt happy from inside. It was the first time in his life that he had a friend. The next morning at the Adventure Guild, the morning was so calm that his breakfast was just a simple sandwich. While eating, a beautiful woman sitting nearby smiled at him. She introduced herself as Celia Aquarain, the mother of the girl he was secretly in love with, Cecilia. Yuki immediately swallowed all of his breakfast in one bite, trying to hide his embarrassment as he sat next to her, his heart beating rapidly. Yuki panicked, trying to force the conversation because he was curious about the real reason why she started talking to him. Celia just smiled slightly when she saw him confused, then apologized for the rudeness the guards had shown earlier. She explained that she wanted to understand him better. Knew that he was in love with his daughter and decided to test him. After that, she invited him back to the villa again, and this time, Yuki did not hesitate and immediately agreed. He noticed that the guards had been changed, and when the two entered the main door, they were greeted by an adventurer of 8 years of experience who was currently working as a maid at the mansion. While walking around the mansion, they encountered Cecilia in her pajamas, and she quickly ran into the room, embarrassed to see Yuki looking at her in that state. Cecilia's mother revealed that she had eavesdropped on the previous conversation and told him that Cecilia had received many marriage proposals, including from the hero Yuga. Jealousy flared up in Yuki's heart, and he expressed his fierce passion, stating his determination to pursue Cecilia with enthusiasm. Celia Aquarain suddenly offered to marry Cecilia to Yuki without any prompting, but the demon boy politely refused. He explained that he first needed to build a stable life to be worthy of his feelings for her daughter. This was a challenge, and he passed it successfully, winning approval from Cecilia's mother. Now, Yuki is deep in the Orxel forest, as a C-rank adventurer, persistently hunting down and destroying the cockatrice. He had been working harder than ever since he learned that the hero Yuga was also pursuing his lover. Suddenly, he was ambushed by a demon wearing armor but no head. Was one of his former subordinates, Duke Dolahan. The Duke was worried when he saw Yuki lacking horns and wings, and informed that his two other subordinates, Harpy Hapines and Pixie Schick, had also been searching for him all this time. Yuki was touched by his subordinates' efforts, realizing that he had meant more to them than he ever thought. His subordinates lined up, expressing concern that he would not be able to face the real world due to his erratic temper. Yuki told them about his journey, about meeting a human girl with whom he was completely infatuated. Instead of letting him pursue his brave love, his subordinates were too curious and decided to transform into a human with a strange appearance. But Happiness had the most difficulty because he had to have his characteristic parts removed. The group of demons bravely approached Cecilia's mansion without any remorse. But they encountered an angry nun who discovered that Happines had suffered while transformed. The subordinates quickly grew to like Cecilia, because she was truly kind and cared for them. Duke Dolahan remembered the first time he met Yuki and did not hesitate to tell all the embarrassing stories about him, leaving Yuki confused. Shik and Happines suddenly disappeared and were nowhere to be seen, forcing Yuki to go looking for them. Finally, he found Happines in a maid outfit. And Shik was lying on Cecilia's mother's lap. They had a lovely afternoon together and then returned together. The next day, Happines was hired as a maid in Cecilia's house, because since A-rank adventurer Sophia taught her a few things, she became suitable for the job. When Yuki met Cecilia again, she offered to let him and his subordinates accompany her daughter on a shopping trip. The group disguised themselves, although not much, simply wearing glasses. On their way through the small shops, they were recognized by the magician and Yuki's rival, Yuga. Mikana also does not give up on her love, deciding to team up with Yuki to find a way to take their target in another direction, in order to win their hearts. In the store where Yuga and Cecilia were trying on clothes, the two lost lovers saw Yuga excitedly helping her lover try on different outfits. Suddenly, Cecilia's glasses fell off, causing everyone around her to turn their gaze towards her. The attention of the crowd caused the group to leave quickly to avoid social formalities, and by the next day they were all exhausted. Cecilia was sick because the previous day's interactions were more than she could bear. She was disappointed that the two couldn't spend the entire day together as expected and promised to make up for it with another date. Yuki was so excited that he started behaving strangely, making Sophia angry and had to kick him out. After Cecilia recovered, Yuki also returned to the guild. Kremen, the man in charge, was in a cheerful mood and kept chattering about how well his wife had been treating him lately. Raven, Yuki's only friend, appeared without saying a word as usual. Even though the two don't have many friends, Yuki still guessed that Raven wanted to invite him to go on a mission together. On the way into the forest, Raven suddenly revealed that all he wanted was to talk to Yuki. But Yuki, who liked to talk a lot, suggested quickly defeating the demon and then going out to eat so he could chat more comfortably. They defeated the demon with ease, making this moment a special memory, as it was the first time the two went on a mission with a friend. Then they went out to eat, of course with Raven in her hat and glasses as her disguise. Yuki's shy friend confesses that he has a crush on someone, but is too shy to approach. This makes Yuki, an extrovert, angry, feeling that his friend is too handsome to be so worried. Yuki immediately cheered and gave Raven more confidence so he could confess his feelings. After a while, they set off, and Yuki was ready to be his right hand, to support his friend. But when they realized they were approaching Cecilia's house, Yuki began to worry that Raven might confess to the person he was pursuing. Still, he waited outside until Raven returned. Raven walked out of the mansion with her shoulders slumped, defeated and depressed because she had just been rejected. Duke Dolahan curiously asked who Raven confessed to, and was surprised to learn that it was Happines. The Duke also told his story, about how Happines was always hunted by humans because of her beauty. Everyone decided to meet Raven to hear his side of the story. The Duke and Raven faced each other, one wanted to protect you, while the other wanted to express his feelings. This tense exchange becomes touching when the two cooperate, helping Raven overcome her fear and take a step forward in making friends with the person she secretly loves. After initial success, Raven then invited the Duke to join the Knights, leaving Shik and Yuki to live together. That day's mission was to investigate the village of Dagas. Yuki, along with Shik and Cecilia, boarded a carriage to go there. Cecilia has a job and Yuki volunteers to help. Of course, Shik, despite his age, doesn't want to stay behind. That place was deserted due to recent attacks by bandits. Cecilia ordered everyone to gather, including those who were injured or sick. And the three quickly got to work. Shik distributed herbs to the villagers, while Yuki and Cecilia used magic to treat them. Upon realizing that Cecilia was running out of magical energy, Yuki gently lulled her to sleep so she could recover. Cecilia was angry at first, but after hearing him express her concern, she calmed down. The villagers told about a little girl living in the suburbs who was currently very sick. 3 people visited the girl, and after drinking the herbal mixture made by Shik, her condition gradually improved. She talked about her illness and the god she often prayed to, believing that it was the same god who helped her sleep and protected her. They headed to the temple-like place the girl talked about, where a demon was sitting there, receiving prayers from the girl. The three quickly realized that the girl was getting closer to starting a demonic cult. Tiru and Cecilia stood outside the temple, when the boys realized that the creature was a gargoyle. They were suddenly attacked. However, the small and slender Schick defeated him with just one kick. Gargoyle begins to tell his story. He was stolen from his original home by a group of bandits and had nowhere to turn. So decided to stay at the temple, clean and reside there. She often came to pray, and he would do anything to protect her. Although initially skeptical, the gargoyle compares himself to Yuki, claiming that they are both pursuing people they care about. In the end, Yuki's group decided not to make things difficult for him and returned to the village. After Tiru was healed and sleeping, the villagers told more about the strange girl who often prayed before a demon statue, which caused her to be shunned by the community. After learning the true identity of the god she worshipped, Cecilia asked about his intentions and entrusted Tiru's safety to him. It turns out that he is not a strange person as the villagers suspected, but just a demon god who wants to protect those who believe in him. The sun disappeared while Captain Yuki, Cecilia, and Schick were still at Tiru's house. Time passes slowly as Tiru tells long stories about her patron saint, the evil gargoyle she is haunted by. In excitement, Tiru grabbed Schick's hand, begging him to stay to hear more stories about the guardian angel. Schick started crying, glanced at Yuki for help, but clearly Tiru chose the wrong person to confide in. Because this guy only cares about eating, drinking and sleeping. Suddenly, Tiru called both Yuki and Cecilia into the conversation. Quick-witted, Yuki made an excuse saying that they needed to wake up early tomorrow, so they both had to leave early. Of course, he didn't ask Tiru to stop, because he was eager to have some private time with Cecilia. Ignoring Schick's cries for help, Yuki and Cecilia said goodbye to Tiru, promising to return before dinner the next night. They walked out under the starry sky and the full moon. Cecilia asked Yuki if Schick was okay being left alone, and Yuki reassured her, saying that he left Schick behind because Tiru looked happy. Of course, he's pretending there's no hidden motive, but the truth quickly came out when he grabbed Cecilia's hand. As he pulled her closer, Yuki made the excuse that it was dark so she needed to be careful. Cecilia blushed slightly, thanking the thoughtful captain, but she was not completely indifferent to his tricks, just quietly smiling. The two held hands, walked through the dark forest, became a simple and happy couple, returned and fell into a sound sleep to regain their strength. But that brief peace was broken when Yuki woke up to the screams of the villagers. Bandits were attacking in the middle of the night. Yuki jumped up from the bed when he heard an old man calling for help. And surprisingly, Schick freed himself from Tiru and snuck back to sleep. Yuki shouted for Schick to wake up, but the boy whined for 5 more minutes to sleep. The clash between the villagers and the bandits took place fiercely, with the advantage favoring the bandits. Several people were seriously injured, and blood was spilled on the village land. Yuki quickly put on the armor, and Cecilia also arrived, ready to assist. The villagers, despite suffering many head injuries, still tried to resist. Just when everything seemed about to fail, Yuki's 3-man team arrived. As captain, Yuki orders Schick to attack, while Cecilia will act as support. Schick, who seemed sleepy, suddenly woke up when he heard Yuki's command, as if becoming a completely different person. With his small physique, he became surprisingly flexible. Jump up and overtake enemies before they can turn to look. In the blink of an eye, he threw a strong kick at a bandit's head, knocking him unconscious immediately. Quick as lightning, Schick pulled out his knife and knocked down 3 bandits at the same time, causing the bandits' laughter to instantly turn into screams. Cecilia couldn't believe her eyes. Was this the boy who had been crying to stay at Tiru's house just a few hours ago? But Yuki remained calm, not surprised because he had seen this side of Schick too many times. He explains to Cecilia that Schick knows how to take advantage of his small stature to cause confusion among the enemy, and the pride in Yuki's voice shows that he is very proud that Schick was once his subordinate. A few minutes passed, Yuki decided it was time for them to join the battle. Seeing that Cecilia was nearby, he decided not to use large-scale magic, but uses storm magic to repel surrounding enemies and protect her. Everything seems to be going smoothly, until Yuki sees smoke rising from Tiru's house. Schick realized that maybe he shouldn't leave her house at all. Yuki ordered Schick to immediately run there, and he quickly obeyed. Meanwhile, Yuki single-handedly took down all the bandits without a single scratch. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the villagers happy. However, there is still worry in his heart because Schick has not returned yet. Doubts began to arise in Yuki's mind. Although he has great confidence in Schick's fighting ability, he is still worried that he may have failed before the bandits attacking Tiru's house. The feeling of insecurity rose, and without further explanation, Yuki immediately ran into the forest with a face full of worry. In the middle of the forest, he suddenly encountered Schick and Tiru. Yuki opened his eyes wide, not believing the scene before him. Tiru looked like she had been crying non-stop, and Schick was holding back tears, standing next to the lifeless body of the gargoyle, the guardian god, that Teru had always admired. The gargoyle's body was covered in bloodstains. Even though he tried to hold back, Shik still stood up, maintained his fighting posture, facing an unknown enemy. This mysterious man emitted a terrifying aura and was holding a blood-stained sword, clearly the one responsible for the gargoyle's condition. Ignoring Shik, he turned to look at Yuki and Cecilia, asking if they were villagers. But when he looked closely at their clothes, he realized that they were not just ordinary people, but also prominent people in the village. Shik immediately interrupted his sentence with an attack, but the enemy seemed to be bored. Without any mercy, he kicked Shik far away, causing him to hit the wall. However, Shik stood up, his eyes filled with anger, showing that this confrontation had been going on for a while. Before Shik can attack again, Yuki holds him and asks him to calm down. Yuki asks Shik about what happened, and Shik explains that the gargoyle was trying to protect Teru from the bandits, when the man suddenly attacked him from behind. The enemy laughed loudly, claiming that he had helped them by killing the monster gargoyle. Then, he started teasing Shik for crying. But this time, Yuki couldn't stand it and attacked him. However, Yuki's magic disappears upon contact with the killer. Cecilia asked Yuki to step back, then explained that based on this person's identity, Yuki would not be able to fight him. She reveals that the killer is Mira from the Garrus Empire, and that the sword in his hand is an artificial magic eater, capable of absorbing magic. This leaves magic users like Yuki with absolutely no chance. What caught Yuki's attention more was the existence of other heroes. Cecilia explains that other countries also have chosen heroes, and the bad news is that Mira's artificial sword is a copy of the magical holy sword, so it has many special abilities. However, their conversation was quickly interrupted when Mira challenged them to step up to fight him, wanting to end things quickly. Yuki tries to explain to Mira that the gargoyle he just killed was just trying to help a human, but Cecilia reminds her that Mira has none of the dignity of a hero. His argument is that every hero has the right to kill monsters, and so he intends to destroy them all. Even though the gargoyle had his wings chopped off and lost an arm, he was still alive. Mira, with a cold attitude, advanced towards the gargoyle, considering him a monster that needed to be destroyed. Teru stood in the way and begged him to stop. Cecilia reminds Mira that if someone from the Garrus Empire harms a citizen of the Clarinet Kingdom, it will lead to war. But it's clear that Mira doesn't care about inciting war. He turned his attention to Cecilia, but before he could touch her, Yuki immediately intervened. After hurting Teru and injuring Shik, Mira had the audacity to point her sword at Yuki's waifu, something unforgivable. A confident smile appeared on Yuki's face as he promised to give Mira a taste of hell. But the problem is, magic doesn't work on this guy. Yuki unleashes stormy blows at his opponent, but as expected, they were completely ineffective, easily absorbed by Mira's sword. Now it was Mira's turn to counterattack, and although Yuki blocked the attack quite easily, he realized that if the battle dragged on, Cecilia would be in danger. Yuki exploded with a huge amount of magic, which Mira took time to fully absorb. While he was busy, Yuki suddenly attacked from an unexpected angle. Snatched a temporary victory, a display that made even Cecilia shake her head. While they were bandaging Shik's wound, Mira suddenly reappeared and launched a spear towards the gargoyle. But instead of hitting the gargoyle's body, the spear pierced Teru, who rushed forward to protect her patronus. Yuki immediately used maximum speed to try to stop the spear, but not in time. Teru fell down from the strong impact. Gargoyle, shocked, asked why she was willing to sacrifice herself for him. Teru simply replied that he had protected her many times as a guardian angel, and she only wanted to protect him once. Unfortunately, Mira was standing up, partially recovered. Thanks to the magic staff that makes him unable to restrain himself, Mira released a spell that caused thousands of arrows to rain down on Cecilia's head. Yuki immediately protected her. But that allows Mira to escape. Both apologize to each other for not being able to complete the task. Yuki criticizes himself for becoming complacent due to his limitless magical power. In a low voice, he asks Cecilia if anyone lived near this area. And when she confirmed that this was a remote place, Yuki decided not to hide it any longer. He transformed into his demon form, a horn growing from his forehead and huge wings appearing. The sight made Cecilia shiver, her eyes widening in shock. Yuki promises to pursue Mira to the end and defeat him. Although his appearance seemed very different from the boy Cecilia knew, he returned to reassure her, assuring her that her consciousness was intact and that he was still the person she knew. He gave her a smile before flying away, leaving Cecilia speechless in shock. Yuki wrapped his face in a scarf and reached maximum speed, and soon he encountered the enemy again, but this time things would be different. Mira's face showed fear when she saw a real demon standing in front of her. Yuki declared that he would be punished for cutting off his subordinate's wings. Mira doesn't recognize Yuki. Initially still confident and trying to attack, but with just one blow from Yuki, he had to cough up blood. What bothered Mira was that if the Demon King was dead, how could there still be such a powerful demon? Without giving Mira time to think, Yuki lifted him into the sky and threw him into the river, declaring that he did not deserve to die at her hands. Completely humiliated, Mira vowed to return for revenge before floating down the river to the kingdom of Garrus, his homeland. Even though Yuki felt he might return to cause trouble, he did not end Mira's life, perhaps due to his soft-hearted nature. After transforming back into his normal form, Yuki realized that his horns and wings were still present. He started back looking for Cecilia, thinking about how difficult it would be to get rid of them. When he returned, he noticed the worry in Cecilia's eyes after looking at his demon form. Yuki promises Cecilia that he will never turn into a devil again and will live as a human. Luckily, they were able to save Tiru's life thanks to healing magic, and the gargoyle held her hand the entire time. Shik is still depressed, perhaps because of the feeling of defeat after the battle with Mira. Now that the job was done, the group decided to leave Tiru's village. When they entered the house to say goodbye, they were surprised. Tiru begged them to take her and the gargoyle to the city of Minerva to find a cure for the gargoyle's missing wings and arms. Yuki immediately came up with a plan, turning the gargoyle into a Buddha statue so he could carry it around without attracting suspicion. When the group reaches the city of Minerva, Yuki meets Duke Dullahan and Happens again. The two seemed ready to get justice for Shik, who was made to cry. Yuki is surprised as to how they knew about this, and discovers that Shik, in a fit of depression, poured his heart out. A person who once lived strong, agile and resilient now has to endure the humiliation of being defeated miserably. Therefore, Shik clearly would not get over this defeat easily, and the Duke and Happines had angry eyes, determined to find the attacker immediately. Yuki calms them down, explaining that he threw Mira into the river. Both were disappointed, because they hoped the captain would at least cut him up, tie rocks to his body and drop him into the sea. Whatever happened to Mira in the river was none of Yuki's concern now. Yuki focuses on finding a way to help Shik lift his spirits. Thinking about Shik liking Cecilia, Yuki thought that maybe she could help cheer him up. Meanwhile, the Duke and Happines' eyes suddenly turned to the Buddha statue placed on the table, and began to mock it with every word they could think of. When he couldn't bear it anymore, the gargoyle revealed its true form, causing both of them to draw their swords because of a misunderstanding. Yuki quickly explained everything. And after understanding the situation, they quickly bonded with the gargoyle, even giving each other nicknames. But not long after, the main butler appeared, pulling Happines out of the room to begin her training session. Before leaving the room to train Happines, the butler comments that Yuki's Buddha statue is unacceptable. Poor Buddha doesn't get any love. Afterwards, Yuki decided to stop by the guild and meet the receptionist. And he was surprised to learn that Kryman was now deputy manager of the society. The receptionist said that although Kryman received many complaints, he still did his job quite well. On the day of the Heroes Parade, Kryman even let all the staff take leave and manage the guild himself for 3 consecutive days, right when Yuki first arrived in Minerva. Yuki asks about where Kryman is currently, and was surprised to learn that he was in the hospital after arguing with his wife. Curious, Yuki visited Kryman, eager to hear him retell the story like a 5-year-old child. It turned out that Kryman delayed too long in choosing a wedding anniversary gift, making his wife upset. However, everything was fine now, and she was about to pick him up from the hospital. The most surprising thing to Yuki is that Kryman's wife is Sophia, who is usually cold and uncaring. Finding this story the most interesting, Yuki asked Kryman to tell about their love when he was young. Kryman said that in the past he used to be an alcoholic with a muscular body. One day, Sophia came up to him in a bar and asked him to team up with her. He intended to flirt with her, but as a result, he was beaten to a pulp. Realizing her strength, he accepted her offer and the two quickly became an invincible couple, known as the Langerus couple. Gradually, Kryman develops feelings for Sophia, and although he does not intend to confess at first, he proposed to her during dinner. She agreed, but then beat him up again when he suggested she give up adventuring. At that moment, Sophia entered the room, causing the conversation to suddenly stop, leaving Yuki feeling both jealous and lonely. Returning home, Yuki transformed the gargoyle from a Buddha statue into a sphinx. He lay in bed, tossing and turning, thinking about Cecilia. Frustrated, he kept changing the shape of the gargoyle's statue for fun. Suddenly, Cecilia and Happines knocked on the door. Yuki jumped with joy when he saw Cecilia, but was a bit disappointed when she realized she wasn't alone. They asked Yuki if he was busy so the group could hang out. Happines wondered about the gargoyle's Buddha statue, and Yuki pointed to the brand new Sphinx statue sitting in the middle of the room. As usual, Yuki received another harsh blow when his artwork was rejected. Cecilia revealed that Shik cried the whole time until she hugged him. After that, He was exhausted and was taken back to the mansion to rest. Hearing that Shik was better, Yuki felt relieved and loved Cecilia even more for her concern. After that, Yuki excitedly told that Crimean and Sophia were husband and wife. Cecilia reveals that her mother once told a story about them, and Yuki, who loves love stories, is interested in listening. However, it was a cheesy love story, making Yuki just want to tear his hair out because of his loneliness. As the story ends, Cecilia invites Yuki to visit Clarence Palace with her. Shik also came along, and although he was a little disappointed that he couldn't be alone with Cecilia, Yuki is still happy because Shik is no longer depressed. The reason they came here was related to Mira. The officials found it hard to believe that strong people like Shik and Cecilia couldn't defeat Mira, so they were somewhat suspicious. Yuki and Cecilia tell Shik to act seriously before the king of Clarines County. When they met the king, he seemed quite friendly. It is known that he participated in battles at the age of 15 and ascended the throne when he was only 25. Shik, half asleep and half awake, was bowing before the king. Then suddenly, the king ordered his assistant, Sylvia, to attack Shik to test his abilities. Shik quickly dodged, making the king believe that all three are very talented and will be valuable assets for the kingdom. He promised to reward them handsomely. Hearing about the reward, only one thing appeared in Yuki's mind. He wants to have a date with Cecilia. The problem is that he just said it out loud in front of the king. Cecilia's face turned red and she almost fainted from embarrassment. Sylvia attacks Yuki for this gross action, but the king stopped him, laughing at his courage. Shik innocently asks for candy as a reward, while Cecilia's red eyes showed that she was very angry with Yuki. She coldly asked him to come to her house to meet privately. Normally, Yuki would be happy with this offer, but now he feared for his life. Luckily, Cecilia's mother arrived just in time, and she seemed to really like Yuki and his determination to impress Cecilia. However, due to Yuki's behavior in front of the king, Cecilia's mother banned him from seeing her daughter for a month. However, after Cecilia and Yuki earnestly begged, she reduced the punishment to half a month. But she makes a promise from Yuki. When he returns, he must confess his feelings properly and become a gentleman. The first day he was away from Cecilia, Yuki dreamed about kissing her and proposing. Realizing that he couldn't endure half a month without seeing her, he went to Raven to ask for advice about love. While wandering together, Yuki and Raven came across a beautiful statue. And this meeting quickly led to differing views. Yuki couldn't help but express surprise at the strangeness of the world, causing Raven to become suspicious, wondering if she had accidentally said something wrong. But to Raven's surprise, Yuki quickly changed the subject and emphasized the need for love advice. Raven, modest and unsure of her romantic abilities, assures Yuki that he can confide in her, her eyes filled with curious mischief. Yuki tells Raven about the first time he met Cecilia and admits that his inattention led to an inappropriate comment that got him scolded. But during the conversation, an unexpected idea flashed. An apology gift. Reminiscing about the time he couldn't buy a necklace for Cecilia because the store was too crowded, Yuki shared about his last outing when the gift slipped out of his reach. He excitedly proposed this gift as a perfect solution for the current situation. Lost in thought, Raven realized that Yuki had the opportunity to date the person of his dreams, while his relationship had barely progressed. To bridge the gap, Yuki suggests the two buy gifts for the people they secretly love. He explained that even if Happines didn't show it, she would definitely appreciate a meaningful gift. Raven decides to buy Happines a gift, but Yuki reminds them that they need a reason to see her. And so they set off on a shopping adventure, stopping by a charming little store that caught their eyes. Raven leaned down and whispered into Yuki's ear, telling them they should leave immediately, leaving Yuki confused. Refusing to be swayed, Yuki remained determined to stay to explore the surroundings. Their presence quickly attracted the attention of the vendor, who curiously approached. Raven discreetly held out a piece of paper with the words hairpin written on it. His means of communication since he couldn't speak loudly. Understanding the situation, the seller leads them to the exact item they are looking for. And before their eyes are the perfect gifts they both need. As soon as they walked out of the store, they suddenly encountered Mikana. She raised her eyebrows, questioning their appearance in this place. Quickly, the two reassured her that they were merely buying gifts, trying to dispel any suspicions. Mikana couldn't help but look incredulous at the thought that a swordsman like Raven could be in love. However, the sound of Mikana's hungry stomach abruptly ended the conversation, revealing her true motive: hunger. Without hesitation, Mikana dragged them both to a nearby restaurant. With urgent eyes, Yuki whispered to Raven, hastily discussing an escape plan. The plan is simple but bold. Eat non-stop to avoid having to talk. But when the two thought they had succeeded, Mikana suddenly mentioned a story about Cecilia. Unable to control his curiosity, Yuki ruined the plan by interrupting Mikana with a series of questions. Caught in reminiscences, Mikana begins to tell the mischievous things Yuga did to the holy woman, Saintess. Raven, unable to hide her jealousy, comments that Yuga is lucky to have such interesting situations, making Yuki uncomfortable. They continued to immerse themselves in stories about Yuga, recalling the times he unintentionally created unnecessary relationships, hindering their noble mission. This is also a brave attempt to redirect the conversation away from mentioning your personal love. They succeed in diverting Mikana's attention, and she begins to tell a fascinating story, leading to a surprising revelation. The victory over the Demon King was not due to a famous hero, but to a low-level demon in the Demon King's castle. Yuki, chuckling inwardly, guessed that the Demon King never expected that. It must have been like having a cake suddenly thrown in his face. The atmosphere in the room became tense as Mikana told about the fierce battles they had experienced in the Demon King's castle. Each battle brought them face to face with imminent death, their lives hanging in the balance. But what torments Mikana the most is the fact that their survival was only possible thanks to the intervention of a surprisingly powerful demon. Her voice trembled as she recounted the moments when they fell into critical situations, their bodies exhausted and full of injuries. And it was at those critical moments that the demon appeared again. Carrying superhuman strength, healing their wounds and giving them the chance to continue fighting. Although the demon's assistance was undeniable, Mikana could not shake the feeling that it only helped them out of pity for their feeble efforts in the fight to win. Dependence on the demon's mercy causes Mikana's spirit to gradually decline. She revealed that every time they face that demon, it is a painful reminder of their smallness in the face of the terrible power it possesses. The demon constantly emphasized the gap in power between them, as if they were just toys in its game. What stunned everyone the most was when Mikana revealed the conditions the demon had set for them to survive and continue their journey. They had to give up Cecilia, the saint they loved, and continue their journey. Without her. It was a cruel condition, striking at the core of the team's purpose and connection. O'Connor admitted that she convinced everyone to accept this condition, but Raven expressed disappointment, questioning whether it would be acceptable if Cecilia were dead. Yuki tried to justify, revealing that at that time he just wanted to get closer to Cecilia, so he made that condition. Mikana went on to recount the details of what happened next, sharing that they thought they understood their enemy's strength and were prepared for victory. However, the appearance of the demon destroyed that confidence. Mikana revealed that the reason they couldn't be defeated by an unarmed demon was because they had to maintain the hero group's reputation and protect the reputation of the IGA organization. As their failure dragged on for months, the report's justifications gradually lost steam. In that decisive moment, the demon offered an alternative. Mikana confessed that for the sake of the group, she was forced to accept the demon's offer. She explained that she made this difficult decision for the good of the team, even though she carried regret and guilt. After defeating the Demon King, Mikana rushed to the room where they had left Cecilia, despite her exhausted body. She expressed her shame and apology for only now being able to tell this truth. Mikana admitted that she could not tell Cecilia the whole story and was instead overwhelmed by guilt and repression as Yuga encouraged her to overcome it. She explains that her true purpose is to protect Yuga, her childhood friend whom she secretly loves. After finishing the story, Mikana left, leaving Yuki and Raven shocked by what they had just heard. The half-month wait was finally over, and Yuki eagerly looked forward to seeing Cecilia again. However, a girl arrives with a message from Cecilia, asking Yuki to come to the mansion at noon the next day. Thanking the girl, Yuki invited her into his house and mentioned that he planned to walk around the city. While in the city, Yuki heard about a shop famous for its delicious cakes and decided to stop by. Entering, he was surprised to see a muscular man welcoming him. The man explained that his sister was sick, so he ran the store on her behalf for the day, and accidentally broke the cake because of using too much force. Through the way he took care of customers, Yuki realized that this man had a kind heart. While there, Yuki buys food for a crying child. But the peaceful atmosphere quickly changed when a thief suddenly snatched the bag from Yuki's hand. Determined to get back what was stolen, Yuki quickly gave chase and knocked out the thief with a powerful kick. However, Yuki was surprised to realize that the thief was Yuga, who had just accused him of being a thief. Despite Yuki's efforts to clarify the misunderstanding, Yuga's rage increases when he accidentally attacks Yuki with his sword. Yuki gets caught up in a heated argument with a stubborn guard who refuses to believe his word about his wallet being stolen, and Yuga easily makes him out to be the bad guy in the situation. Frustration boiled inside Yuki as he thought about how Yuga had turned him into a sinner. Just as tensions reached their peak, a figure stepped out from the shadows, none other than Commander Raven, the city's famous hero. Raven walked over, holding a piece of paper in her hand that recorded what really happened. Yuki's eyes widened with relief when he realized Raven had come to help him. He was filled with gratitude, realizing that without Raven, he would be stuck in this strange situation forever. With an understanding smile, Raven reassured Yuki that he would remind Yuga to pay more attention next time. Mustering up his courage, Yuki asked if there was any way to communicate with the other heroes. Unexpectedly, Raven nodded in agreement. Explains that he often uses handwritten messages during hero group meetings. Yuki found it strange yet convincing with the reason behind everything. What is surprising is the omission to investigate Cecilia's son for activities that may have led to these serious misunderstandings, especially after his wallet was stolen by a human, causing him to be mistaken for a criminal. With Raven's message to Yuga already written on paper, Yuki is determined to find Yuga to solve the problem at the root. Yuki confronts the Duke about his recent actions, but only receives a denial from the guards. The Duke asserted that in public he would only refer to Raven as Commander Raven. At this point, Irene steps in and drags the Duke away for training, leaving Yuki to ponder the possibility of fairies becoming knights. While Yuki was immersed in thoughts about the mysteries of the world, Yuga appeared majestically. The two quickly had an interesting conversation, reminiscing about their previous meeting while Yuki and Cecilia went for a walk. With the intention of reconciling, Yuki suggested that the two visit a famous restaurant with great food nearby. Entering the restaurant, Yuki experienced a familiar feeling when he realized that this was the restaurant that Mikana had suggested. Unable to hide their admiration at the restaurant's perfect organization and spacious space, the two quickly ordered. Yuki took this opportunity to apologize for his haste and misunderstanding earlier. Yuga, always the forgiving friend, reassured Yuki that there was nothing to worry about. But deep inside, Yuga still felt guilty and wondered how a hero like him could make such a mistake. To comfort Yuga, Yuki shares some advice, advising him to let go of the burden on his shoulders. As the conversation gradually became more cheerful, Yuga could not suppress his curiosity and asked about the relationship between Yuki and Cecilia. Yuki calmly replied that they were just good friends, much to Yuga's surprise. The surprise didn't stop when Yuki revealed that even Raven was his friend. Yuga, surprised by this, turns to Yuki for advice on friendship, admitting that he doesn't have many friends and wishes to understand more about the meaning of friendship. An explosion of intense emotion arose within Yuki as he began to talk about Mikana's role in recent events. Yuga was surprised to realize that Yuki knew about these hidden details. Yuki explains that Mikana was tormented by guilt and often cried because of her actions. An argument broke out between them, with Yuga insisting that it was Mikana who abandoned Cecilia in the first place. But Yuki countered, insisting that Mikana's motive stemmed from the deep care she had for Yuga. Gradually, Yuga realized that he had unfairly blamed Mikana, while ignoring his own responsibility in the entire story. This awakening causes Yuga to shed tears, realizing his selfishness and irresponsibility. In a heartwarming moment, Yuki comforts Yuga, reminding him that failure is a natural part of life, and that he should not give up or avoid his responsibilities. Through a heartfelt conversation, Yuga realizes the incredible support Mikana has given him since childhood. He understood that Mikana's scolding was just an expression of their deep concern and close relationship. Determined to correct his mistake, Yuga decided to apologize to Mikana, but did not have the courage to meet her alone. Therefore, he turned to Yuki for support. Yuki agrees to accompany Yuga on this journey of redemption, emphasizing the importance of friendship and mutual support. In his haste, Yuga suddenly bumped into Yuki. A humorous moment where the two meet by chance and are eventually formally reintroduced. Full of determination, Yuga rushed into Mikana's house without even knocking. But what he did not expect was the unexpected sight before his eyes of Mikana in a semi-naked state, shocked by Yuga's sudden appearance. Without waiting any longer, Yuga launched into a penitential speech, admitting his selfishness in the past and apologizing for treating Mikana poorly. However, despite his enlightenment, he still behaves quite clumsily. To atone, Yuga even asked Mikana to scold him. But in this situation, she was already angry because he barged in while she was changing, so scolding was already in the plan. Meanwhile, Yuki, increasingly bored by the dramatic scene unfolding before him, wisely decided to leave the chaos. He chose to go for a walk with Tiru, and she happily agreed to join, clearly wanting to temporarily escape that stressful scene. The two walked through the market together, and fate seemed to arrange an interesting turn of events. A girl was giving out free cakes to everyone because her muscular brother accidentally smashed a customer's cake. Life is interesting with unexpected situations, and that burly man is none other than Beast Man. Yuki was quickly drawn into a conversation with this special character. Just when he thought his day couldn't get any weirder. Suddenly, a man approached and apologized to Yuki for the trouble his little master caused the day before. As compensation, the man gave Yuki a small gift bag. Curious, Yuki opened it and was pleasantly surprised to see fragrant grilled meat skewers. Great, but the surprise is not over yet. On the way, Yuki happened to meet Happiness again. And in her joy, she led him to where she worked. And where he hoped to see Cecilia again. The reunion after half a month of waiting made them both feel like a long year had passed. In the joy of love, Yuki did not come empty-handed but gave Cecilia the free food he received from the market. He confessed that both gifts were free, making Cecilia laugh, making the atmosphere between them happier. While chatting, Cecilia prepared more cake for them to enjoy. Yuki was enamored with the delicious cake and repeatedly thanked Cecilia for her cooking skills. Although he was once the demon king in the castle, Yuki now feels happy, because he has found a reason to live, and that reason is Cecilia. As their story deepens, the dynamic duo Yuga and Mikana suddenly appear to meet Cecilia. Yuga, with courage, stepped up to offer his most sincere apologies to Cecilia, but before he could finish his sentence, chat. A strong slap from Mikana landed on Yuga's face, creating a dramatic turning point. Undeterred, Yuga mustered his courage once more, begging Cecilia to vent all her anger on him, as if a scolding could purify his soul. But Mikana, realizing the importance of voicing her regret, took a deep breath and apologized herself. Mikana poured her heart out, trying to express her deep regret. But Cecilia, always the great friend, wouldn't let her suffer another moment. She interrupted Mikana, opening her arms to accept the apology. Emotionally, of course, why prolong the torment when forgiveness is just a hug away? At that moment, Yuki stepped forward like a mysterious savior, gently handing Cecilia the hairpin he had prepared in advance. The hairpin seems to have been born for Cecilia, highlighting her beauty to a surprising degree. Even Mikana couldn't help but praise her, admitting that Cecilia looked truly gorgeous with the hairpin. Clearly, Yuki's fashion sense cannot be underestimated. In this tender moment, Cecilia turns to Yuki and sincerely expresses her gratitude for his intervention in the saga between Mikana and Yuga. Yuki, always the humble person, confesses that he cannot bear the thought of their relationship falling apart. Both Cecilia and Yuki realize the profound impact they have made in each other's lives. They exchanged looks filled with happiness, hoping this new connection would continue to bloom. Cecilia, an optimist, trusts her heart to Yuki, knowing that he will always be by her side, caring for and protecting her. Yuki, in a nervous moment, clutched the necklace he planned to give Cecilia. He realized the tension and importance of this moment, stepping outside to take a deep breath, as if the anxiety was taking hold, making it difficult for him to think clearly. Meanwhile, Yuga, unable to contain his excitement, urges Mikana to investigate inside Cecilia's castle. Seeing Yuki lose focus, Mikana gave him a light slap to bring him back to reality, reminding him that they needed to focus on the task at hand. Yuki, heart pounding, apologized to Cecilia as they both entered the castle. With courage, Yuki approached Cecilia. His sweaty hand trembled as he tried to touch hers. The surrounding air was filled with tension, and Yuki couldn't stop himself from thinking too much. He feared that Cecilia might not like the gift. The fear of rejection stuck like a thorn in his mind, making it impossible for him to think clearly. While Cecilia waited patiently in the hallway, Yuki struggled with the confusion in her heart. Finally, he made up his mind, took a deep breath, and walked closer to Cecilia again. She stood there, seemingly knowing what he was going to do. But just as he was about to give the long-awaited gift, fear struck again, and Yuki quickly ran away, unable to control his anxiety. Yuki decided to take Cecilia to a secret place in the mansion. Curiosity filled him when he accidentally heard a conversation from a nearby room. Holding his breath, Yuki tried to listen and discovered surprising news. Kramen and Sophia had just welcomed a child into this world. Sophia, determined to protect her daughter from Kramen's influence, took on the noble task of raising her herself. Just as Yuki reaches the threshold of an important discovery, danger suddenly appears. He held Cecilia's slender hand, his heart pounding with adrenaline. And the two rushed through the mansion's maze-like hallways, trying to avoid their pursuers. Finally, fatigue caught up with Cecilia, her voice filled with fatigue as she asked about Yuki's intentions in this dangerous mansion. With sincerity and determination, Yuki confessed that he had found a quiet place, a paradise with just the two of them. A ray of hope flashed in his eyes. Yuki gave Cecilia a precious necklace, a symbol of his steadfast affection. He recalled the last time she couldn't buy the bracelet she wanted because of a troublemaker in the store. But now, he was proud to say that he had that gift, and his feelings for her were unshakable. Cecilia, filled with joy and radiant in her eyes, expressed her deep gratitude and promised to cherish the necklace. This happy moment, however, was quickly broken when Yuga suddenly burst into the room, with a voice full of dissatisfaction when seeing Yuki and Cecilia together without anyone else. The two decided to leave the mansion and step into the splendid garden together, where the evening light still lingered, creating a peaceful space. Yuki, a boy on the path to conquering the love of his life, now clearly sees the obstacles that stand in his way, so decided to go to the guild to find the answer. Yuki angrily asked why the high-level missions he performed did not bring worthy rewards, while he still held a B rank at MSI. Crayman argued that Yuki's current position was already very good, considering he had only been registered as an adventurer for half a year. Yuki, in human form, argues that he needs to advance faster to make his life stable. For Crayman, this means more senior assignments and more work, something he's not excited about. In the end, Yuki's case was settled when Crayman lazily explained that promoting too soon could cause trouble, and that promoting quickly was not always a wise choice. Yuki walked home in disappointment. His plans to settle down soon were delayed again. The gargoyle remained in its strange, hat-like form, placed on the table. The two had a small chat. Before the gargoyle sadly revealed his true state of decline. Deep cracks spread across his body, his arms were missing, and his wings were stripped away. The temple's guardian god confided that he had suffered a heavy blow in the final battle and could not seem to recover as usual. With only 5 days left to live, and despite his weakened state, the gargoyle worries about Tiru and her failing health. He asked Yuki to take care of Tiru after he left. But Yuki, not easily accepting his friend's fate, immediately stood up straight, striking a spirited pose in the middle of the room, declaring that he would commit to finding a cure for the injured gargoyle, no matter how difficult it might be. Yuki decides that the best person to ask for advice on demon-related matters is Duke Dullahan. So he visited him at the knight's headquarters. Without his wings anymore, having to walk became Yuki's least favorite activity. As soon as he arrived, he plopped down on the sofa, waiting for his friend to complete the administrative duties of a noble knight. A rather weak-looking female knight approached Yuki, introducing herself as Irene. She asked about the relationship between Yuki and the Duke, commenting that they seemed to be very close. Additionally, she was curious why a talented knight like the Duke called Yuki his captain. Yuki saw this as an opportunity to tease Irene, who seemed trusting easily. He tells about their past in a mysterious and scary way, making the story more intriguing. At that moment, the Duke walked in and quickly dismissed Yuki's words, claiming it was just a joke. The name Captain was just a fun nickname he gave his friend. Irene left them alone to chat. And Yuki doesn't beat around the bush and gets straight to the point. Yuki explains the gargoyle's situation and asks the Duke for help in finding a timely cure. Loyal to his position as a subordinate, the Duke did not disappoint him. The solution is to find special magical minerals for Gargoyle to absorb, helping him recover. Because this is common knowledge in the demon world, the Duke was somewhat disappointed in his captain's abilities. When Yuki walked out of the headquarters, he caught sight of Cecilia with a worried look on her face. She ran to inform him about Tiru's deteriorating health. The two rushed to where Tiru was lying, where Shik was taking good care of her, mixing various medicines to help her recover. Along the way, Yuki also updates Cecilia on the gargoyle's condition, and the two quickly realize that there may be some connection between Tiru's and the gargoyle's conditions. Tiru lay motionless on the bed, breathing weakly. Shik worriedly reported that his medicine supply was almost exhausted. The situation looks extremely gloomy. But Yuki, with a sense of responsibility, undertook to bring more medicinal herbs to Shik. At the same time, he reminded him of his current main task and promised to take care of this job so he could focus on taking care of Tiru. Tiru woke up worried when she heard about the gargoyle's condition, and tearfully begged them to help him recover. Cecilia comforted her, casting a gentle spell to help her return to a peaceful sleep. Leaving the room, Yuki and Cecilia immediately got to work. After thoroughly investigating where magical minerals could be found, Yuki went to the trading guild. However, this place is also lacking supplies. At that moment, Crayman entered the store, surprising Yuki when he discovered that this lazy vice president was very popular with the women in the association. Yuki received information about a quest from the trade guild master, but was annoyed that this task seemed more complicated than expected. Crayman, noticing Yuki's hesitation, tried to entice him to join the mission immediately, but Yuki refused, reveals that he is busy searching for magical minerals. Crayman smiled and said that this quest was actually related to minerals. At the same time, he offered a generous share and the opportunity to advance to a rank. Yuki finally accepted, because he couldn't waste any more time. Keeping things short and discreet, Crayman simply told Yuki to meet him in front of the guild the next morning. By then, Yuki was surprised to find himself in the company of Crayman and his wife Sophia, as well as Cecilia. The group boarded the carriage and headed straight towards their destination. While they were briefed on the detailed mission, they divided into 2 teams. Cecilia and her servant would go and collect the 6 necessary herbs, while the group of boys are given the more complicated task of finding a supply of magical minerals. Luckily, the quest locations overlap, as this place is famous for its rich magical energy. From the moment he got on the carriage, Crayman was knocked unconscious and lay on Sophia's lap. When Yuki curiously asked the reason, Sophia replied calmly that they had just had an argument and she had persuaded him to agree with her point of view. Clearly, here violence is the language to resolve disputes. Copper. When he woke up, Kramen was completely enamored with his wife's closeness, muttering sweet words, acting like a good husband. Seeing this new image of a man who usually looked like he was on the verge of exhaustion, Yuki couldn't help but be surprised. When Kramen takes a break from his romantic dream, he returns to his mission and learns that they will have to face a demon residing in a magical mineral mine. Kramen, jokingly, asked the group to delay reporting to the guild so he could enjoy more time with his wife. In response, Sophia persuaded him again when he accidentally called her an impolite word, causing Kramen to receive another lifelong lesson. The group decided to deal with the monster first, then continue with the main quest. The night before the start, Yuki eagerly wondered if he would get a chance to see Sophia, a high-ranked adventurer, in action in powerful armor. When it was time to prepare, Sophia was indeed wearing armor, but surprisingly, it was a maid outfit. Yuki couldn't help but wonder if her husband, Kramen, was a strange enthusiast about maid outfits. Sophia shyly revealed that Kramen liked to see her in this outfit. When he was questioned further, Kramen shared a sweet secret. He fully recognized Sophia's formidable strength, but still worried about her safety. The fact that she was dressed as a maid made everything seem like simpler tasks, somewhat reducing the danger of the actual job. Yuki was a bit jealous of the love the couple shared, and he curiously asked if they had any children as the group began to enter the mine. Kramen happily talked about his daughter and son. But the story is interrupted by monsters blocking the way. Without wasting a second, Sophia immediately rushed to attack. Kramen uses magic through the power of Shikigami. But with his laziness, he let the paper dolls operate with their own power, instead of controlling them meticulously. The paper dolls quickly defeat the giant monsters, paving the way for the group to advance deeper into the mine. Moving further, they face the real enemy, a mutant monster that eats rocks. Its body was unusually shiny, indicating that this was the cause of the depletion of magical minerals. Kramen warns them about two things. First, don't use magic because it won't work. And second, the monster's body needs to remain intact after being defeated. He advises Yuki to let the monster devour him, using protective spells to stay safe. But Sophia immediately stepped in, considering herself more suitable for this battle. Kramen changes when he puts all his heart and soul into protecting his wife, something he probably wouldn't do his best with Yuki, the unlucky guy on the team. The group coordinated using magic to keep the monster in place. Yuki unleashed a series of powerful spells. Cecilia uses protective charms to wrap around monsters, and Kramen used special arts and protective charms around Sophia. This time it's no longer ordinary paper dolls, but real transforming Shikigami. A sign that Kramen is serious about protecting his wife. He leads the team, making sure no mistakes happen. Sophia quickly entered the monster's belly and destroyed it from the inside. The two young couples blushed and checked to see if the other was okay. While Kramen and Sophia expressed their sweet affection publicly. Having completed the battle, the party moves on to the next task of gathering herbs. This took quite a while because the rubble from the battle made it difficult to harvest herbs. Finally, they headed to their temporary accommodation for the night. But before retiring, Yuki asked Cecilia if he could return to his true demon form so he could quickly confront a certain enemy. Waiting for everyone to fall asleep in the inn, Yuki went downstairs. And suddenly found Cecilia still awake. When he asked why, she showed solidarity and helped him sneak out. She gave Yuki all the herbs, magical minerals, and food for the journey. It's been a while since Yuki flew back in demon form. But he was still as agile as ever and soon arrived home, where Gargoyle was sleeping. Yuki tries to wake him, but Gargoyle wants a peaceful departure. However, he could not resist Yuki's determination and decided to let him act. Without a word being exchanged, Yuki began stuffing magical minerals into the Gargoyle's mouth one by one. The cracks on his body slowly healed, and the minerals seemed to work wonderfully. Furthermore, Gargoyle enjoyed their taste and asked Yuki to give him the bag of minerals so he could enjoy them at his own pace. Yuki left immediately and headed towards where Tiru and Shik were. He quickly handed over the herbs to Shik, even though he was still sleepy, so he could start treating Tiru. After that, Yuki returned to the inn. Although removing the wings and breaking the horns was still painful, he was too tired to complain and snuck inside to take a nap. The next morning, Yuki was awakened by Sophia's radiant face. As she was observing her husband, who was unconscious, in her arms, something that had now become a habit. On the way home, Yuki fainted on the carriage because he was too exhausted from last night's journey. When he woke up, he found himself lying on Cecilia's lap, and Kramen did not miss the opportunity to tease the two when he saw them being intimate. A few days later, both Gargoyle and Tiru fully recovered. The two of them grew closer and closer. This makes Yuki uncomfortable, as he himself is still not talented enough to win the heart of the woman of his dreams. Every morning when he wakes up, he sees Gargoyle and Teru hugging each other, making the poor master's heart feel aching. He was confused and wondered why they became so close. But that atmosphere filled with love really made him unbearable. Yuki goes into the city and comes across the half-human, half-lion demon he faced before. They exchanged a few greetings. And Yuki was quite impressed with the bustle in the market, especially since the demon lord was defeated. Surprisingly, he even met Kramen walking around the market. A rare sight, because Kramen was usually only present at the guild. When Yuki asked why he wasn't at the guild, Kramen answered with a gloomy expression. It was because he was looking for a wedding anniversary gift, every man's obsession. Seeing that he was quite free, Yuki happily went along to help, even though Kramen had never asked. Yuki began choosing a few gifts that he thought Kramen might like to give his wife, including some rather odd items for their wedding anniversary. Not shy, Yuki suggested a pair of cat ears and even tried them on his head to prove that they looked cute. As a joke, Yuki secretly placed the cat ears in Kramen's bag. The young devil, with his unique fashion style. By the way, I also bought things for myself that I haven't had a chance to buy in a long time. Make your shopping bag fuller and fuller with unique items. Yuki's bag was now so big that it was like a giant rock strapped to his back. And this unique sense of fashion was not appreciated by Vice President Kramen. He frankly called it odd. But it must be admitted that Kramen, a devoted husband, a compliment, has good taste in gifts. He bought a new apron and a set of imported spices. In return for Yuki's help, Kramen generously gave him an A-rank mission on his day off. Yuki, extremely excited, rushed into the alley to change clothes. When he returned, Yuki looked like a fashion disaster. He wears a large bulky mask and a long black cloak, creating an aura of mystery, but not the type of mystery that everyone wants to discover. In addition, the odd accessories make his appearance even more unpleasant. Accompanying the mysterious person, Kramen approached the reception desk and requested an A-rank quest for the special character behind it. When the receptionist asked about his current rank and name, Yuki replied that he was Black Lightning, Magic Sword Master. Unable to stand the cheesiness of the name, Kramen just threw back good luck and quickly left, leaving Yuki to handle everything himself. With a dramatic new image, Yuki took on 4 A-rank missions, clearly too much, but he promised the receptionist that he would return within 10 days. Dressed in a silly outfit, Yuki quickly completes most of the tasks, but seems surprised by everyone's cold reaction towards him. The final mission is to destroy a group of disruptive bandits. After discovering them, he drew his lightning-shaped magic sword, mastered it, and cast spells that cause lightning to rain down on the sword, creating a light show. However, the robbers did not show any fear and laughed at his silly outfit. However, Yuki quickly tied them all up, only to encounter an approaching squad of knights, with Raven and the Duke leading the way. Yuki declared the mission complete and prepared to leave immediately. Raven pointed at the tied-up robbers and whispered something to the Duke. The knights received orders to spare Mr. Black Thunder, and Yuki hid behind the trees to secretly listen. He was truly surprised to see that Raven, too timid to give direct orders to her knights, had to rely on the Duke to convey instructions. Duke directed Raven back to complete his important missions, while he secretly tried to start a conversation with his weird captain. In a moment of confusion, Yuki took off his mask, his face red with embarrassment as he realized that everyone might have realized his impersonation. Quickly, he ran home to avoid further detection. When he arrived home, Yuki saw Sophia smiling gently at her husband, holding a cat ear headband. Kramen, with immeasurable pain, could only lament that he could not throw it away. His daughter liked this item so much, even though he didn't know who secretly put it in his bag. Upon returning to the guild, Kramen had to inform Yuki that his ranking remained at B rank. Because senior leaders do not agree with sudden promotions. Kramen advises Yuki to disguise himself as Mr. Black Lightning, one more time to accept the A-rank mission. But that memory only left a bitter obsession for Yuki, making him tremble and afraid. Still shocked from the previous experience, Yuki entered the guild and suddenly saw Sophia appear at her husband's workplace. When he asked why she was there, Kramen just held up a bento box filled with beautiful chocolate. Ah, Valentine's Day is here. A day for couples to rejoice, while single people have to suffer empty-handed. Yuki left the guild in a hurry, returning to the apartment without accepting any of the day's missions. However, he was greeted by the sight of Teru stuffing heart-shaped chocolate into Gargoyle's mouth, making his FA heart feel overloaded. Too much to bear, Yuki went to his remaining single friend, the Duke. In frustration, Yuki's devilish aura radiated. He looked truly scary. At that moment, Irene walked in, holding a box of chocolates, shyly giving it to the person she secretly liked. Yuki secretly hopes that something unfortunate will happen to the couples around him. Together with the Duke, he secretly observed Raven and Hapines, who were immersed in the sweet silence of love. Yuki felt lucky that they were at least quiet and unobtrusive. Entering the main city, he encountered Mikana and Yuga, are also having their own romantic moments. It seems like everyone is making progress in their love life except him. Even Shik, the little guy, received chocolate from Cecilia. While Yuki ponders his life choices, including the idea of taking on the image of Black Lightning and causing chaos, Cecilia catches up with him. She asked if he had eaten anything and invited him to dinner with her, after dining at one of the most luxurious restaurants. Yuki escorts Cecilia home. Before saying goodbye, she gave him a bag full of chocolate and candy. For the first time, Yuki felt like he belonged here, that his lonely life was over. That joy soon stopped when she gently revealed that she had prepared gifts for everyone, and he was the last one to receive them. Although a bit disappointed, Yuki still happily enjoyed the cake and a lovely little card. Then put back a few cookies and chocolate to save, tears streaming down from emotion. The next morning, he felt a little pain in his heart when the Duke talked about how delicious the cookies were. But he also realized something special. No one else received a cake like him. That small joy is like a sweet reward. However, this happiness did not last long when Cecilia discovered his Black Thunder trick. She pulled Yuki's ear, warning him not to repeat that action again because it violated the guild's regulations. At the guild, Yuki received secret rewards for A-rank missions. Before leaving, Kremen asked about the cat ear headband from last time. And Yuki simply confirmed his suspicions. Afterwards, Yuki and the Duke stop by his favorite bakery. Yuki shares with the Duke that he has some business this afternoon, making the Duke surprised and ask why Yuki called him on a rare vacation. Yuki smiled and simply replied that he just wanted to see his friends occasionally. Yuki expressed his gratitude to the Duke for helping him regain his spirits. Although the Duke just took it as a matter of course, and joked that Yuki was probably the only one acting that stupid. Curious, the Duke asks if the others find Raven's voice funny, but Yuki changes the subject, worried about his upcoming date with Cecilia. The Duke commented that Raven would need time to get comfortable speaking in front of people, causing Yuki to sarcastically exclaim that this is due to the Duke's naivety. The Duke then asked about Yuki's relationship with Cecilia, and Yuki happily shared that he had planned a date, choosing his favorite bakery. Confused, the Duke asked if Yuki was just going to eat cake and then go home. He advised Yuki to find out Cecilia's interests, or at least find a way to ask indirectly. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, Yuki sought guidance from the Duke, but he left a wish of good luck before leaving. Taking Yuki completely by surprise, he quickly lied that he had just arrived, despite the fact that he had been there since morning. Luckily, Yuki built a good relationship with a friendly waitress who allowed him to sit for a long time without ordering. When the waitress came to the table to ask about what they wanted to order, Cecilia was overwhelmed by the delicious cakes and couldn't decide. Noticing that Yuki was pensive, she gently asked if there was anything worrying him. At that moment, the waitress's muscular brother walked out of the kitchen, attracting the girl's eyes with his impressive muscles. He proudly introduces a new cake recipe he just created, and the cake turned out delicious. Testament to the power of cake and muscle. Appreciating Yuki's choice to choose this bakery, waitress Amy thanked him and Cecilia, creating a cozy atmosphere when everyone introduced each other. When it was her turn, Cecilia hesitated and decided to reveal her true identity to Amy, emphasizing that it was a secret. Amy was surprised, calling her Cecilia-sama, with admiration when she recognized an important person sitting in their small bakery. Amy was excited but respectful, expressing her wish that her brother, too, would grow up like Cecilia. Piqued by curiosity, Cecilia asked more about Amy's brother. Amy shares that his name is Andre, and tells the tragic story of their family. Their parents, talented pastry chefs, died in the war against the Demon Lord. The two brothers, who admired their parents' dedication, suffered pressure from society and were considered careless for opening a bakery during difficult times. Andre, with the will to protect his sister, constantly trains physically to become a strong fulcrum for her. Andre's muscles hide a tearful past, making Cecilia even more impressed. As heroes appeared in the world, criticism of Andre and Amy gradually subsided. Cecilia invites Andre to bake cakes together, but he refused, thinking that he needed more physical training. Determined to prove himself, Andre joins the guild and reaches B level, surprising Yuki and Cecilia. After leaving the bakery, Yuki wasn't sure where to take Cecilia next, feeling like she was testing him. There is no perfect plan for a date. Yuki decided to follow the Duke's plan, accidentally followed him and Cecilia into the pharmacy. Cecilia then suggested visiting a clothing store. where she chooses Yuki a gift that fits his unique style, making him blush happily. When Yuki offered to buy something for Cecilia, she refused, explaining that her outfit was carefully taken care of by Sophia-san due to her noble background. They continue their journey, accidentally following the Duke and Cecilia to a Kenjutsu dojo, where Yuki feels a bit incompetent by comparison. Later, when Cecilia excitedly suggested stopping by a flower shop, Yuki breathed a sigh of relief, feeling freed from the pressure of having to plan the next step in the date. Cecilia begins sharing with Yuki about her encounters with Shik, who is teaching her everything about flowers. Yuki was curious and realized that Shik must be very knowledgeable about plants. The two continued their conversation, discussing the frequent meetings between Shik and the gardeners at the mansion. They discussed flowers that could be used as spices or to make tea, and Yuki noticed that Cecilia and Shik got along quite well, as naturally as if they belonged to each other's world. Curiosity drives Yuki to ask Cecilia to share more of what she learned from Shik. He was surprised to learn that some flowers could be used as medicine, and up until now he had only thought of flowers as objects just for looking at. This thought made Yuki change his perspective, realizing that the beauty of flowers lies not only in form but also in use. He thought to himself that this date was going better than expected. If he could take her to another special place, this would definitely be the best date he'd ever had. This time, he decided to trust the Duke's plan and quietly follow. As he continued his journey, Yuki noticed that the street became more and more deserted. Cecilia suddenly noticed someone, and Yuki's curiosity increased as he tried to understand his surroundings. They realized that they had arrived at a horse archery range. Suddenly, a group of children rushed towards Cecilia, embracing her with warm hugs and calling her Holy Mother. Yuki's surprise grew, wondering what was going on. The orphanage manager, Debate, approaches and asks Yuki if he is Cecilia's friend. She introduced herself and explained that Cecilia often came to the orphanage to do charity work, teach, and play with the children. It was clear that the children loved and bonded with Cecilia because of her kindness and compassion. After completing the shopping, Debate invited Yuki and Cecilia to visit the orphanage. The children were extremely excited when they heard that Cecilia was coming. And Yuki happily helped carry the luggage. Impress the kids with your strength. When they arrived at the orphanage, Yuki quickly took on the role of entertainer, bringing joy to the eager children. Both Cecilia and Yuki have a wonderful time with the children, but Cecilia advises him not to use magic to avoid attracting attention. Yuki is sorry. And they also apologized for staying so long. While cooking dinner with Debate, Cecilia reassured them that they didn't mind at all and invited them to come back anytime. Looking back on a memorable day, Cecilia jokingly asked if Yuki's plans had been ruined. He admitted that he didn't really have any specific plans, but still happily recalled their interesting experiences at the clothing store, the flower shop, and the orphanage. In the end, Cecilia thanked him for taking her home, and Yuki commented that the date had gone well, despite leaving a bit of awkwardness between them. Afterwards, Yuki shared the experience with the Duke, and he felt satisfied when the Duke commented that all the efforts were worth it. Confused, Yuki asked the Duke to explain further, and was surprised to learn that the Duke had secretly arranged this entire appointment. Completely surprised, Yuki asked again for clarification. The Duke explained that he had carefully planned Yuki and Cecilia's date, from researching activities she might enjoy to arranging destinations, even making sure that meeting at the orphanage wasn't a coincidence. This meticulous calculation made Yuki both scared and surprised. When Yuki asked about the Duke's date, he shared that they were just strolling through random places. The Duke explained that Irene had knowledge of medicine and liked to make potions, so they stopped by the pharmacy. The Duke also learned a little about medicine thanks to Shik. In addition, they also watched a match at the Kenjutsu dojo and participated in horseback archery. Yuki secretly admired the Duke's efforts, but he also realized that the Duke had wanted him to experience it all himself instead of explaining it first. Thinking about that, Yuki understood that he needed to prepare better for his next dates. With determination, he sets out to create a special sweet treat for Cecilia at the bustling bakery. After Cecilia surprised him with a cake and homemade cookies, Yuki wanted to reciprocate with a gift he created himself. However, anxiety surrounded him as he had never tried making such complicated cakes. Overcoming his fear, Yuki sought Amy's help and spent a week learning baking skills. With deep gratitude to Amy for her dedicated guidance, he expressed his sincere thanks every evening after the shop closed. Meanwhile, Andre is also diligently teaching himself how to bake. Both Yuki and Amy were stunned. When Andre shows off his beautiful work, full of pride and gratitude to my sister for her care and encouragement. When Yuki returned home filled with excitement, a friend came to visit and asked about his plans. Yuki explains about White Day, Valentine's Day, and share your excitement. The night gradually ended, but Yuki couldn't stop thinking about the next day. the moment when he would give Cecilia a sincere gift from his heart. The next day, Cecilia was extremely happy and constantly praised Yuki, making his face turn red with embarrassment. Suddenly, Yuga suddenly walks in with a gift for Cecilia, making Yuki angry because he thought Yuga should have knocked on the door first. Cecilia, calmly, advised Yuga to be more careful, and Yuga quickly apologized. Yuga questions Yuki about why he was in Cecilia's room early in the morning on White Day. It turns out, Yuga also came to give Cecilia a gift, because on Valentine's Day, Cecilia gave candy to many people, so today there are many people. Even the special characters came to respond to her. Even Mikana shows up, and she reveals that on a previous Valentine's Day, they caused chaos throughout the city, and the knights had to step in to calm the situation down. To prepare better this time, Mikana asked a group of swordsmen to bring a few knights to ensure security for the gift-giving ceremony. When Yuga gave his gift to Cecilia, Yuki couldn't help but feel a little jealous, but Mikana advises him to let them enjoy their moment alone. As Yuki wondered if that would upset Mikana, she just smiled and said she didn't want to intrude. Afterwards, Yuga suddenly gave Mikana a gift, a dress he had found at the market, as a way of expressing gratitude for always taking care of him. Unexpectedly, this dress was the traditional outfit of female magicians from abroad, surprising Mikana. After the exchange, both Yuga and Mikana left. Meanwhile, Yuki tells Cecilia about Gargoyle's intention to give a gift in return to Tiru. Interested in the story, Yuki suggested they go back to his room and invited Cecilia to join them. When entering, Yuki was upset when he saw Gargoyle touching Tiru. But Cecilia quickly intervened and explained that Yuki had misunderstood the situation. Not wanting any more trouble, Gargoyle quickly took them out of the room. Cecilia then suggested returning to the mansion. But on the way back, they decided to stop by Kramen's place to see if Sophia had left something behind. The guild manager welcomed them warmly, and both Cecilia and Yuki were surprised by the abundance of cookies. The woman explained that her husband, with the help of Shikigami, had prepared these cakes as White Day gifts. On the way out, Cecilia recalls that Shik also gave her mother a gift on White Day. An herbal tea that helps reduce shoulder tension and beautify. Yuki suddenly realized that even though Shik was just a child, he was not ordinary at all. While feeling satisfied with the way things went on White Day, Yuki suddenly remembered that he had forgotten something. He proposed visiting Raven with Happines. Upon arriving, Yuki inquired about Raven's location, but the knights guarding the area said Raven was already inside and took Happines with him. Cecilia stepped forward and shared with Yuki that Raven met Happines during the final security check and gave her a White Day gift. Happines wondered whether to open Raven's gift or not, causing Yuki to burst out laughing and remark that neither of these two seemed to have changed at all. While Yuki waited anxiously, Raven appeared, showing a rare smile, and revealed that he invited Happines to join him. Yuki excitedly shared his plan, hoping the three of them would have time together. However, Duke and Cecilia were unable to participate due to prior commitments, making Yuki feel a bit like the third person as the group prepares to depart. Just as they were about to leave, Yuki suddenly stopped, saying that they were waiting for one more person. Raven thought maybe it was Cecilia. But when Happines appeared, everyone was surprised to learn that this was the signal for a new mission. Yuki explains that, although Happines is not as strong as Duke, she still possesses quite formidable fighting skills, having been a loyal subordinate in battle. Happines uses feathers and magic in combat, but her power is reduced without her feathers. Raven, surprised and a bit regretful for underestimating Happines, quickly apologized to her. Yuki sees this as an opportunity for the two of them to become closer. Both Yuki and Raven apologized to Happines for making her wait. They then discussed sharing the cost of renting a carriage, but when Happines offered to pay, Raven insisted on taking care of this part. When Raven temporarily left, Yuki took the opportunity to praise Happines' dress and curiously asked about the patterns on it. Happines revealed that those patterns were actually where she hid her secret weapon, causing Yuki to marvel at her hidden weapon. As they continued their journey, they finally reached their destination and realized they needed to find an inn as a base. Raven begins taking notes of important information, but Yuki offers to let him find an inn on Raven's behalf. Both reluctantly admitted that they needed to improve their communication skills, especially when working in groups. After placing the furniture, they go back to focusing on the task. Still, no one seemed willing to initiate a discussion about the mission, making Yuki feel like he would have to take the lead. He shares with the group that their client is the mayor of Freemer, and this time, the mission is to solve the thefts that are raging on merchant ships. Raven speculates that the thieves might be pirates, based on a notice board they saw earlier. He also mentioned a similar mission he accepted on a previous trip, where he gathered information to track down a pirate lair. However, Yuki interrupted, Wanting to add more information, he explains that they cannot be sure whether the culprits are actually pirates, because the money and goods all mysteriously disappeared while everyone on the ship was sleeping. Raven found it strange that no one noticed any suspicious activity, since there would have been crew members keeping watch. This makes them suspect that the crew may be secretly participating in theft. Additionally, Yuki hypothesizes that the entire crew may have colluded to steal money and goods, although this is just speculation. To progress faster, Yuki suggested that the group split up into action. He plans to visit the Merchant Guild president to find more clues, while Raven and Happines will interact with the crew members. Yuki thought that by shortening the distance between members, cooperation would improve. And he also secretly planned to arrange a date for Raven and Happines after completing the mission. Meanwhile, Raven and Happines began gathering information by asking questions of the crew members, but some sailors underestimated their abilities, angering Raven and revealing her true power. Realizing that the situation was not progressing, Yuki silently observed from afar, thinking about his next move. Unable to help himself, he decided to intervene in the conversation and take the opportunity to introduce himself with confidence. Claiming to be Raven, Happines, in the middle of the banter, realized that she had never met this sailor before, surprising her when she saw Yuki naturally as if she had known him for a long time. The man calling himself Masa introduced himself as a sailor, even showing off his muscular muscles. As Yuki was trying to focus on the mission, Masa couldn't help but proudly ask about Yuki's attention to his strong body. "Are you going to ignore the attraction of my muscles?" Yuki apologizes and confesses that he has met people with similar bodies, but quickly redirected the conversation back to the mission. "Thank you, Masa, for accepting to help." Masa explains that the crew are now treated like criminals due to the mysterious disappearance of their cargo. No one believes in their innocence. If the situation continues, all will be considered petty thieves. Masa sadly admitted that this was a bad situation for those living as sailors. Everyone was immersed in worry. He pleaded, "You have to believe me, we didn't steal anything." Having no other choice, Masa is still determined to carry out his mission. Yuki's team reassures him that feeling worried about being falsely accused is understandable and they are only here to help find the truth. Yuki called on the crew, urging them to work together to find the truth of the incident. "Let's find the truth, even if we have to turn every page," he said with determination. The whole group gathered in a corner, determined to gather information. The investigation lasted for a whole day, and eventually Yuki's memory flashed, helping him recognize pieces of the information they had gathered. Through patchy clues, Yuki discovered that there were surprising coincidences between the sources. Happines praised Raven for his excellent work and brought them both a refreshing cup of tea. Raven continued talking about the mission, sharing the information they had gathered. He suspects that monsters are involved, as those affected seem to lose their memories after hearing a seductive singing voice. Both Raven and Yuki pondered the possibility of mermaids existing in this world. Yuki questioned, arousing more curiosity. And Raven reveals another important clue. Someone claims to have seen a mermaid in a nearby cave, and she's carrying a lot of luggage. The whole group was surprised by this information, especially since the informant also said that the mermaid seemed to appear with a large number of chests. Yuki is skeptical about the convenience of this information, but Raven agrees that they should investigate to find out the truth. They decided to explore the cave the next morning. As dawn broke, Yuki's group arrived at the cave and discovered a row of scattered containers. Obviously something valuable has been stolen, making the atmosphere tense. While they were thinking about the possible presence of magical creatures, suddenly a beautiful mermaid appeared from the water. Puts them in dangerous situations. The mermaid's enchanting voice has the power to enchant and confound anyone who hears it. To fight back, the members had to cover their ears to avoid the seductive melody, but this also left them defenseless. Yuki admitted that no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't completely stop that mesmerizing sound. When all hope seems lost, suddenly Happines stepped up and started singing. Her melodious voice blends with the mermaid's melody, creating a counterpoint that weakens the sea creature's control. Although feeling a bit dizzy due to the effects of the song, Yuki noticed something extraordinary. Raven was unaffected and moved with surprising agility. Curiosity arose in Yuki when he realized that Raven may have a special ability, being able to only hear the voice of her lover. This reveals that love may be the key. Taking advantage of this rare opportunity, they signaled Happines to stop singing, and with new determination, they courageously faced the seductive mermaid. In the amazement of all, Happines stepped forward, standing before the mermaid like a protector. Yuki and Raven were both stunned to see that Happines, contrary to all expectations, decided to act as a shield for the mermaid. Their mysterious connection seems to portend a dramatic confrontation. The stage for epic battle has been set, And what fate awaits our heroes as the story unfolds with deeper mysteries. Don't miss the next dramatic chapters where all the unanswered questions will be revealed.